welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Omar. Nice entry. Hi, everyone. Welcome to everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me. And let me share my screen. And I just want to see all of your faces, or as many faces as I can see in Zoom. And so the talk is tonight, the topic that I want to present, or I want to offer everyone, is I think everyone, the notion is everyone is or can be an Agile coach. And the way I'll enter this is when I published my book, you hit code freeze and you freeze the writing process, and then you publish it. And I was reflecting, and there's some things like a piece of software. I said to myself, oh, I wish I would have done a better job of this, or I wish I would have included that. So it's never done. And one of the things that I regretted in the book is the title, believe it or not. And it was, I had Agile Coaching in the title. So the title's Extraordinarily Badass Agile Coaching. And that title sort of limits it to say, well, this book is for Agile coaches. And maybe a Scrum Master or two, but really for Agile coaches. And that was a narrower audience than I was hoping for. And I like the title, but I didn't want it to be narrow. So this talk is trying to correct that mistake. And the mistake is, what I would rather have you get out of this is I think Agile coaching skills will benefit anyone in any role. Does that resonate with folks a little bit? That's what I wanted to communicate. Now, I'm not trying to turn you into an Agile coach. I don't care what so I'm not trying to promote you or demote you. I'm not trying to put you in a different org structure. What I'm saying, though, is if you're a manager, coaching skills will help you. If you're a product owner, coaching skills can help you. If you're a team member, coaching skills can help you. I think be a better team member, be a better manager, be a better leader. And so that's what I want to, this is a primer, if you will, on Agile coaching tonight. We're going to go very fast, and then we're going to have some practice at the end. But I hope you join me in seeing that, oh, you know what, maybe I can use some of these techniques in my own job or my role, in my own role. So let's get going. That's the setup. Not going to talk about me. I want to talk about a few things. I'm from North Carolina, from Cary, North Carolina, the middle of North Carolina. I love dogs. I'm a grandfather, a husband. I have 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and 4 animals. So I'm a person who has many 4s in my life. Now the grandchildren, I can't fix that. So it's highly probable that I'll have more than 4 grandchildren over time. But right now, I have 4 grandchildren. The other interesting thing about me, or thing that I'm proud of, is I collect potato heads for an unknown reason. And that's my favorite potato head there. It's Darth Tater. Not Vader, but Tater. Like a tater tot. So, but don't tell him he's a tater tot. He'll get upset and he'll sort of hit you with his lightsaber. The agenda tonight is I want to explore something called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, which is a framework that's useful to think about Agile coaching. Remember, I'm not trying to turn you into an Agile coach. I'm trying to share with you the skills of an Agile coach so that you could develop them. So don't be offended and listen. Oh, I'm not an Agile coach, so I'm not going to listen. Don't go there. Really sort of embrace this stuff for yourself. Then we're going to explore something called the coaching mindset. And I think that can be very useful in Agile contexts. Then we're going to talk about a conversational model, a coaching conversational model. So there's really 3 vignettes that we're going to go through. And then we're going to do a bit of practice. No one be frightened. It'll be safe practice. So I'll explain the practice later. But we're going to practice using chat, and we're going to practice some scenarios. And I think you'll have some fun in learning with that. And then we'll close. And we'll go about an hour or so. So when I say coaching, it's very broad. So think broad, a broad definition, as broad as you want to make it. And I'll just leave that there. This is what I want to start is with a little history. There are 2 people who I'm incredibly respectful of, who led the way in Agile coaching. Some of you may have heard of them. Lisa Adkins and Michael Spade were involved in the early days of Agile coaching. And around 2010 or so, Lisa wrote a book, an Agile coaching book, probably better than mine for that matter still, and it still stands the test of time. And as part of that book, they introduced a framework called the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. Some people call it the X-Wing model because it has that X in it, and I sometimes call it the X-Wing model. And what they were describing is they said coaching, Agile coaching has stances or competencies or skills. And there's 4 primary skills that I want to introduce you to. So there's not just, an Agile coach isn't just one thing. It has a definition, but then there's operating modes. Think of it as I'm changing, I'm sort of dancing around different operating modes or different competencies. So the first one is teaching. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? Everyone, right? It's teaching. So I teach a client. And I'm going to use the term client as I'm a coach and I'm coaching a client. A client could be a person, a small group. It could be a scrum team. It could be a Kanban team. So when I say client, it's just a group or an individual that you're coaching, that you're directing your coaching to. So I'm teaching the client. As a coach, I make the decision, hey, in order to serve them, they may not know something about Scrum or Kanban. Perhaps I need to teach them this aspect. So I can move into teaching mode. Mentoring mode is another, I think of it as sort of a teaching mode with a different flavor. To me, teaching is face-to-face and sort of talking to people, whether it's virtual or face-to-face. You're sort of facing them and you're trying to share ideas or share knowledge. Mentoring to me is more side-by-side, if that makes sense to everyone. More, I'm showing someone something and then they do it. So I show them how to do something and then they show me how they understand it, and I might critique it and I show them something else. So I think of it as apprenticeship, maybe is another way to think of mentoring as apprenticeship, or I'm helping apprentice someone. So the coach it's coach as teacher, coach as mentor, coach as facilitator. Does that resonate with everyone? I'm facilitating a meeting. So coach, I step into a facilitation role. I'm facilitating a Scrum event. I'm facilitating a global retrospective or a release planning. In some way, I'm facilitating those kinds of things. So it's coach as facilitator. Normally that would be in groups. Normally the client in that case would be group-based client. And then probably one of the most interesting of the stances, the 4 stances that they talked about was professional coaching. And that's where you're asking the client questions in order for them to discover the answers for themselves. Does that resonate with everyone? So you're asking your client questions. You're not telling them what to do. You're not teaching them. You're not mentoring. You're not facilitating. You're asking, and you're not telling them how to solve their problems. In fact, a professional coach should really never do that. Very rarely. You're asking curious questions of the client so that they can discover the answers on their own. Powerful questions is heard there. And I switch stances in service to my client in their agenda. So there's other things on the chart, but I really wanted to cover those 4 primary stances, and I want you to lean into those. And that was pun intended, leaning into those, right, everyone? So, haha. I occasionally have dad humor, so it's very poorly used. So I'll just laugh at it myself. So this is the growth wheel. And there's some history associated with it. It's a replacement, or it's an update. It's a replacement of the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, but the stances are inherited in the growth wheel. That's why I went to history. The growth wheel started around 2016. It was driven out of the community. And there's a little history there. You don't have to read that slide. There's a link there. If you like it, you can go back and do some research in it. But I want to go here. And I want to contrast some of the differences of the wheel against the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, because it's an update. It's an upgrade in some ways. One of the upgrades is the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel talked about. If everyone looks in the middle, there's something called self-mastery. Does everyone see that? The hub of the wheel is self-mastery. And that was something that the competency framework didn't really talk about so much. It was inherent, but it didn't really call it out. And self-mastery is coaching is an inside-out job. Anyone ever have an agile coach tell them, like, they coached you and said you have too much whip? Does that resonate with everyone? Or coach gave you advice or something like that, and said, I'll pick on Omar. Omar, you have too. I'm your coach. You have too much whip. Whip limits. You're not getting work done. You have a lot of balls in the air, but you're not getting anything done, Omar. What's wrong with you? You're not very agile. I'm just kidding around, everyone. And he has excessive whip, and it's true. But guess what? I'm coaching him to reduce his whip. And when Omar looks at me, he's like, "But Bob, you have 22,000 clients that you're working with. You have excessive whip yourself. How can you coach me to do something that you're not willing to do yourself? You're not walking your talk." And that doesn't resonate with Omar very well. So self-mastery is agile coaching is an inside-out job first. So don't worry about coaching others. What you want to do is coach yourself. Make sure you're aligning with the agile principles yourself. There's a lot of coaches that don't do that. Maybe I'll use these terms. Don't walk their talk. Anyone ever report to a leader who didn't walk their talk? They said, be agile. But then when you looked at the leader, they weren't walking their talk themselves. So I think that inside out mindset can really be useful. And self-mastery is about that. Things like your ethics, your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence. Are you coachable? I would argue that everyone who is a coach should have their own coach. So you're a mentor and you should be being mentored. If you want to be a coach, get a coach. Get a free coach, pay a coach, whatever you want to do. Get an inside coach inside your company, get an outside coach, get both. But it's really easy to coach others. But then I can't tell you how many agile coaches I know that don't have their own coach. I have multiple coaches, and trust me, I need them. I need all the help I can get. So it's really that kind of a journey. I'm practicing what I preach. I'm walking my own talk. I am and not only do I have a coach, but I'm coachable. I have the humility to listen, to have discussions, to be open-minded, to say, you know what, you're right. I maybe need to make some adjustments in my style there. You're absolutely right. And my presence. And I'm service oriented. Part of the coaching mindset is to be, I'm a servant leader. You've heard that notion. I'm a servant coach. Every coach should be serving their client. It's not about what I want. It's about what your client's agenda is and how to help them achieve their agenda. Does that resonate with everyone? Anyone here who's a leader? Everything I've said would help make you a better leader. Has anyone ever had a one-on-one with someone? Does those words make like a one-on-one? Either you're in a one-on-one or you're having a one-on-one with someone who reports to you. A lot of these coaching skills are directly applicable to the one-on-one. And I see a lot of managers when they have a one-on-one, they make it about them. They make it about the business. I would flip it around and say the one-on-one should be about serving the person that's reporting to you. Just because you're higher than them in the hierarchy doesn't mean that it should be your meeting. You should be helping them develop their skills. How can you serve them? What kind of a wonderful mindset is that? So now I want to go to the stances. Remember those stances I was talking about? Right. So facilitation, mentoring, teaching, and professional coaching. The wheel inherited some of them, but it added a couple. So what it did, I just want to go over that. So it carried facilitation right along. So it makes good sense. And it carried professional coaching right along. Those two stances. But what it did is it aggregated mentoring and teaching into something called guiding learning. So it aggregated those two things together into a singular stance or a mindset or a competency, something that you're developing as a competency, a skill. So think of those things as competency, skills, stance as being equivalent. It added two stances that I think were very powerful. One stance was the advising stance. That was it was a missing link in the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, because you were never, if you looked at the description of that framework, you were never allowed to provide advice as a coach. Everyone with me? Like coach as advisor or coach as consultant. You could ask questions, but you weren't really enabled to provide advice. So the growth wheel says, occasionally in service to your client, you may need to provide them advice. They may not know. Anyone ever have an Agile coach them and all they did was ask questions? Does that anyone can raise their hand? Some Agile coaches, a lot of them will fall into the habit of just asking powerful questions. They're in professional coaching stance. And I've seen coaches coach leaders, and the leader is like, if they ask me one more question, I'm going to explode. I don't need them to ask me questions. I mean, it's nice. They're really nice. They're nice people, and I like them. But I don't necessarily need them to ask me a question. I don't have the answers. I brought them in to help me, and the coach won't provide advice. So the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel says, you know what? Occasionally give them some advice. That might be because remember, you're serving your client. You're not serving yourself. You're serving their agenda. You're trying to help them grow. Now, if you give them advice all the time, then they're not going to grow. I hope that resonates with everyone. So the idea is not to stay in any one stance 100% of the time, but really to dance across the stances as appropriate. I like that metaphor of dancing across the stances. The other stance that the growth wheel added was a leadership stance, and it ties nicely with self-mastery. I think of the leadership stance as being a role model, coach as role model, coach as a change agent, coach as an evangelist, right? So coaching from the front, the leadership stance is sometimes I want the coach to stand in front. Very often coaches will stand in back, and they'll sort of coach the clients, but it's not about the coach, and that's good. But maybe occasionally in a transformation, the coach needs to provide inspiration. So they might step up in the front a little bit. And that's that leadership stance. I think it complements self-mastery, the walking your talk, or the leading by example. What I'm learning is my most powerful coaching stance is how I show up in leadership. Does that resonate with everyone a little bit? Like being intentional about how you show up is incredibly important. Like you could show up in meetings as a coach. Let's say that you're in a meeting and people aren't listening. Like you have a very diverse team and you've hired for diversity, but if you're not including all those ideas. So let's just say the mature engineers, the mature white male engineers are getting all of the attention and having all the discussion. And there's women engineers who aren't really being paid attention to as much. And as a coach, you're observing this dichotomy that we've hired for diversity, but we're not being inclusive of all ideas, like all voices matter. And as a coach, you don't do something, you don't do anything, maybe out of fear or lack of safety. What I'm saying is then your actions are speaking for themselves. You're actually empowering that or enabling that. Everyone with me? Right? So you could make a choice and to step in as a coach and say, hold it, time out, everyone. We're not listening to all voices. And I've noticed that we're listening to voices on this side of the room, but we're not listening to voices on this side of the room. What I'd like to suggest is we listen to those voices for a while. That's really, I know there's some wonderful ideas over here. And let's activate those voices. And then I step back as a coach. Right. So what I've done is modeled a behavior. Everyone with me? I've actually shown people, I've recognized it, and I've modeled a behavior. To me, that's leading. That's leading by example. You may not do it all the time. You may not do it very often, but it can be incredibly powerful because it's risky. I just took a risk, didn't I? There's a power structure in that room. There's dynamics in that room. I may have said something that folks are uncomfortable with. So I stepped into that and I stepped out. So I think all of these stances as a coach are important. There's some other stances I'm not going to really talk about. They're more agile centric, agile lean skills, service orientation, and then transformation. And if you want to, you can do some more research into those. Those are three additional but more agile centric stances. The final thing that the wheel does that's really wonderful is it talks about different levels of expertise within each stance. The Agile Coaching the X-Wing model never did that. It really said, you were a facilitator, but it never talked about, are you a novice of facilitator? Are you a practicing facilitator? Are you a master facilitator? It never really helped you grow your skills within each stance. And I don't think that was the intent of it. The Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, the growth in it, the amplification of that is it gives you guidance in each slice, in each competency. How do you go from a beginner to a catalyst? Not that you have to be a catalyst everywhere, but it gives a lot of guidance as to what good looks like to get to the next level. So if you want to grow as a coach, the growth wheel is a wonderful, wonderful framework to sort of help you guide you. Oh, I want to grow my facilitation skills. Well, there's some advice in the wheel about how to do that. Oh, one final point. The goal is not to become a catalyst. So if you want to become an Agile coach, I don't think you want to become a catalyst in every competency. Does that resonate? Ronaldo, does that resonate a little bit? I don't think you have to be expert everywhere. Like if I'm a Scrum Master, I decide if I'm a Scrum Master and I want to hone my coaching skills, what would be good competencies to grow? Anyone? I would say facilitation would be, if I'm a Scrum Master, I might want to grow my facilitation skills. I might want to grow my mentoring skills. Make sense? Yeah, I'm going to be mentoring the team. And I probably want to grow my Agile lean practitioner skills. I want to know what I'm talking about because I'm coaching my team. So I might want to have that. And then there's some other stances that I might want to starve a little bit. I don't need to develop them as strongly. So the role that I'm in, I'm selective. The other thing is there's some stances that you just don't like. I'll be vulnerable with everyone. I don't like facilitation that much. I mean, I like it and I don't. It doesn't get me excited. I can do it, but I'm probably a practitioner level facilitator, maybe moving into guide. And I'm good enough there. Where I'm really developing myself is in transforming and in coaching and in leading. So I'm really growing my skills and continue to grow my skills there. So you don't have to, what I'm trying to say is you don't have to grow your skills equally across the wheel. That's probably a bad strategy. It's okay to amplify some things and to starve some things. Enough of that. Any questions about the wheel? Did you get a sense for competencies and framework? That's the definition. If someone's asked you, what is an Agile coach? The definition, I would say, you know what? It's a combination of skills that are applied in service to the client. And I would list some of those skills. It's not one thing. Like an Agile coach is not just a facilitator. You need to be nimble. You need to be able to dance over time as you develop your skills. But in the beginning, you start maybe in one or two areas. Coaching mindset. I just want to talk about mindset a little bit. Some prime directives. And I want you to think about this in all of your roles. Do no harm. I don't care what your role is. Don't be harmful. I want everyone to put a tattoo on their left wrist. API, assume positive intent. I wish every Agile team member assumed positive intent more, right? My manager, they can't spell Agile. They're a pointy-headed manager. They don't know what they're doing. They're micromanaging me. Well, assume positive intent. Don't marginalize them. Don't typecast them. That's probably not that helpful. Hold your clients as capable. Don't talk down to your clients. Has anyone ever used the term, if you're a coach, that's not Agile, that's not Scrum? The Scrum guide doesn't say that. You're not doing it according to the book. If you've ever used that language, I want you to have a strong talk to yourself tonight in the mirror. That's not very respectful. That's not good language to use. Not if you want to influence people, not if you want to establish relationships with people. You want to hold, it's not about your agenda. It's about holding your client's agenda. Everyone with me? Right? And you have to ask what their agenda is. So don't assume that you know what it is. Just ask them. There's a powerful question. What would you like? How can I help? Everyone, repeat after me. I'm just kidding. How can I help you? There you go. Right? How can I help you? What would you like to become? What's your biggest challenge? Be curious with your clients, no matter what your role is, with your team. If you're a Scrum Master of a team, you should be asking your team questions like that. Don't assume, oh, they write terrible code, or they want better retrospectives, or I need to teach them Scrum. Ask them before you assume what they need, and then serve what they're asking for. Imagine that dynamic a little bit. Another important part of mindset, remember coaching mindset, this is useful everywhere. Meet people where they are, not where you want them to be, right? I make this mistake all of the time, and I have to correct myself because I'm so passionate about, can anyone tell that I'm passionate about Agile? I'm a bit passionate about coaching and Agile. So when I talk to a client, I want them to join me in the Agile heaven as I've experienced. And my heart's in the right place. Meet me here. It's a wonderful place. There's unicorns and sunshine, and the grass is green. Come to this Agile place, and that's meeting them where I want them to be, and that may be the ultimate sort of destination, but I can't meet them there. I have to meet them where they are. So meet people and understand where they are. Activate your empathy, activate your curiosity, meet them where they are, figure out their agenda, and then help them to move, even if it's not as fast as you would like, right? It's not about you. So sometimes you have to meet people where they are, and sometimes you have to leave them there for a little bit of time. Don't force people. Has anyone ever made someone Agile? I'm curious. Someone can show me one of those little electronic hands if you. I've been doing Agile for like nearly 25 years, in various forms, but for literally that long. In 25 years, I've never converted someone. I have never magically transformed someone to Agile by the sheer force of my will. Not one person. It never happened. I think it's impossible. You can't, another way of saying it, you can't change people. Does that resonate? So another coaching mindset. Everyone realize you can't, repeat after me, you can't change people. People have to decide to change themselves. Now, what you can do as a coach is influence that. You can inspire that, right? You can challenge that. You can role model that. You can show them what good Agile looks like. That's why modeling is so important. Role modeling is so important. But you have to meet people where they are, and they have to own the change. Marva, did you have a question? So another part of that is walking in their shoes. I was doing a coaching session earlier today, and we were talking about a scenario where someone was struggling with a leader who really was not behaving well with their team. So they were really having really obnoxious command and control behavior with their Agile team and not listening to their team. And the team morale was plummeting, and they were having some attrition. And it was a real problem. And this person that brought up this scenario was a coach. And one of the things we talked about is she was getting very frustrated with this person. And I think she was triggering and saying they're never going to change. And that may be the case. But one of the things we talked about as a group is, have you walked in their shoes? Do you know what the driving forces may be for their behavior? Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Have you looked on their side of the equation and tried to be empathetic to what may be causing that? And if you understand that, you can become a better coach on the other side. You can understand the relationship. It may give you a wonderful way to create relationship with them, to help them, to partner with them. But if we don't know, if we just react to their behavior and we haven't extended empathy, then I don't think it's going to have a great outcome. So I'm not saying it's a magic bullet, but empathy, walking in the shoes of those you're coaching. So for example, I'm a developer. I'm a trained software developer. I won't tell you what languages I can code in because you wouldn't recognize the names of them. They're old, and they're very old and archaic languages. But that being said, I sometimes think, oh, I'm a developer. I know what it's like to be a developer in Scrum Team Bob. And I remind myself, you know what, Bob, you don't have a clue what it's like to be a developer on Scrum Team Bob. and you don't have a clue about what it's like to be and if you have two teams, Jim and Sally, and three teams and Bob, it's probably different in each one of those three teams. Everyone with me? Don't assume that you know what it's like. That's very presumptuous. It's sort of rude. Go, before you open your mouth and coach, go look. Walk in their shoes and figure out, what is it like to work in that team? What are their challenges? Talk about meeting them where they are. How cool would that be? Now I have some empathetic context. How many of you have baggage and biases? Everyone raise their hand right now. Yes. Do you think it affects your coaching? Absolutely. Even if you're polite, what goes on in your head? I'm coaching, I'll pick on Sophia. I'm coaching Sophia. But in my head, I'm thinking, Sophia, I've coached her before. She can't spell Kanban. She'll never get self-directed teams. And I'm smiling, hi, Sophia, how's it going? Can I help you? But in my head, I'm meeting her with disrespect and marginalization. Do you think that affects the coaching environment between Sophia and I? And the answer is yes. That baggage she'll sense that. What if I met Sophia with respect and curiosity and assuming positive intent? Would that have a different effect on our coaching ecosystem? And the answer is yes, or our conversational ecosystem. So what I'm saying is how we show up here matters. And that's what we can control. I cannot control Sophia. I can control how I show up with Sophia as a coach or with Omar as a coach. That I can control. So release my baggage. And then this is what I've been talking about. Principles and behavior trumps everything. You can talk. You can have letters after your name. I'm sure all of you have some letters after your name. You can have 28,000 letters after your name. You could have read Bob Galen's books. You could have read other books. I mean, that's all wonderful. That doesn't matter if you're not applying it. There's sort of all that stuff. Behavior trumps everything. Walking your talk. People around you are listening to you, but they're watching how you show up. Everyone understand? One of the 5 Scrum values is courage. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone should know that. One of the 5 Scrum values is courage. All right, I know that. Am I showing up with courage every day in my team, in my role? That's the question. Am I exhibiting that? Am I walking courage to my degree? Omar, I need to give him some courageous feedback. He's been only talking to one person in the team. He's really been listening to the team lead, and he's not being very inclusive. I need to have the courage to have that conversation with Omar. And it's dangerous because Omar, he's pretty hot-headed. He may, and he's very powerful. He may take my paycheck away. He may fire me, but I still need to walk the talk of courage. So be a truth teller, have radical candor to the degree that I can. Am I walking my talk? All right, I want to stop and see if there's any questions. Any questions?
For anybody who has questions, feel free to come off mute, or if you want, you can type them in the chat.
Yeah, chat would be beautiful. You could chat, you could type anything. Question, comment. Bob, I think you're silly. Just be respectful. Anything you want. All is fair game. I want to talk about a third thing to everyone. It's a coaching conversation. It's a little bit of a model for having a coaching conversation. You don't have to be a coach to have a coaching conversation. I think of this as a model for a developer to developer, developer to tester, tester to UX person. It's any Scrum Master to Scrum Master, product owner to Scrum Master, manager to Scrum Master to manager. I don't care. It's a very simple conversational arc that can be useful. The way I think of it, I like chess metaphors. So I want you to think of a coaching conversation as having opening moves, middle game, and end game. It's just 3. It's a flow. Opening moves is how you open the conversation. Ask permission. One of the best pieces of advice I got decades ago was someone said, Bob, before you give someone feedback or before you have a conversation with them, ask them for permission to have that conversation. And if they say no, take the no. Don't force them to have the conversation with you. Make sure it's the right time. And I always do it. So ask that. Establish goals. Establish their agenda. Ask them what their agenda is. How can I help you? Listen. Ask some open-ended questions. And the magical part of asking an open-ended question, I actually don't do a good job of this sometimes. People have called me out in classes. I ask an open-ended question, like, who can I ask a question? Let's see. I'm going to ask Philip. Philip, what do you think the coaching arc? What's the most important part of the coaching arc? Oh, I'll tell you, Philip. The most important part of the coaching arc is the end game. Did everyone notice? I gave Philip like 5 milliseconds to answer the question. And then I answered it for him. That's not a powerful question. I should have shut up and listened. Everyone with me? I should have waited for Philip to come off mute, given him time to think. Maybe let silence do its job, right? So an important part of questions is patience and powerful listening, active listening. So that's part. And then you get some direction finding. Middle game is where, you remember I was talking about switching stances, everyone? I usually enter opening moves in coaching stance, asking questions. But then depending on what the client needs, then I might switch a stance. So I asked Joel something about Kanban, and I realized that Joel doesn't understand whip limits and why they're important. Does that resonate with everyone? Right? So then I stop. I switch from question mode, and I go into what? Teaching mode. I adopt a teaching stance. Hey, Joel, can I give you 5 minutes of an overview of whip limits and how to apply them in Kanban system? And I start doing that. Or maybe I show him. Maybe I go into mentoring stance. In the middle of that, I ask him, hey, Joel, let me stop. Is this landing for you? Is this helping you? Oh, it is. Good. Do you need any more right now? No. Did it serve your agenda? Oh, okay. Is there anything else on your agenda we need to explore right now? So now I'm asking him some open-ended questions. And then maybe I need to get into like an advice. And he's like, you know what, Bob? But I really struggle. I can't get to a whip limit of below 10 because everyone is giving me all these requests. And I'm like, Joel, can I give you some advice? There might be a couple of options of how to handle that. I'm not sure which one might work for you, but I can suggest some options. Would you be open to some options? Can I give you some advice? And Joel's like, oh, oh, well, maybe not. Maybe, Joel doesn't want advice. So he's like, no, I'm not open to advice. So then I shut up as a coach. Or I'm dancing in the arc. Does everyone see what I'm doing? I'm sensing and responding, and I'm trying to serve Joel's agenda. And I'm not just doing one stance or showing one competency. I'm not all over the place. And then at the end, I close. We might decide on action plans. What is Joel going to do? What is Kenya going to do next? If anything, is there another coaching session we want to talk about? If Kenya doesn't like the word coaching, maybe we could call it a powwow or a coffee break or whatever. I don't have to trigger on coaching, or it could be a one-on-one. Kenya, when would the next time for a one-on-one? What would be convenient for you? And then we plan it. And what should we talk about the next time? Should we follow on, or is there something else we can talk about and explore? So I'm following this arc of opening moves. Middle game is the exploration, where I change stances, and then end game. I want everyone to do a screenshot of this page. Real quickly, just do a screenshot, please. You'll reference it later. And I can read everyone's mind. It's like, when is this guy going to shut up? I could read your mind. Soon we're going to shut up. All right, so we'll just wait. So part of questions I found is powerful questions. There's a lot of them. So I provide this reference in this little mini sort of sample of Agile coaching. There's a book by Michael Bungay-Stanier, and he talks about the coaching habit. This is not Agile coaching. This is leadership coaching, but he provides these wonderful 7 questions that I really love. They're simple and they're practical, and I use them all the time. First one, what's on your mind? Opening move. You with me, Stella? That would be a wonderful opening move question. What's on your mind? How can I help? And what else? Drill into it a little bit. What else? Is there anything else on your mind? Is there anything else? What's the real challenge here for you? I'm trying to go deeper. Oh, Bob, I have a whip limit problem. But can you tell me a little bit more about that? Is it just your understanding of whip limits, or is there excessive pressure? Is your boss being too demanding? Let's drill into that. What do you want? The agenda, everyone with me. Sophia, it's what do you want? Not what do I want? What do you want? How can I help would be another example of that. How can I help? Now, you want to be careful as a coach. Who owns the outcome in a coaching relationship? The person you're coaching. Everyone, the coach does not own the agenda. The coach does not own the outcome, the action. That being said, can we partner with them? I think it's powerful to partner with them sometimes. Can we co-create the agenda? Can we co-create the outcomes? I would say yes. Just make sure you're not taking over ownership of it. You want to be careful about that. If you're saying yes to this is my favorite question. I don't use it enough. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? Right? So that people aren't just saying yes to everything. Has anyone ever worked with someone who said yes to everything? A product owner. It's a really bad thing. So that's a good question for a product owner. If you say yes to this, what are you saying no to? So that you're balancing your back. And finally, what was most useful to you? An end game question. What was most useful in my coaching? How could I get better? Did this help? What could I do to make it even better for you? Did I make a mistake? Did I serve you? Did we support your agenda? And then remember, I said part of that questions is then listening. And this slide is really just talking about powerful or active listening. Don't forget to listen. Just asking questions and not working on your listening is only you're only doing half of professional coaching, if you think about it from a stance point of view. All right, that's it. So here's what I want you all to do. I'm going to give you a scenario. So I want everyone to sort of draw an arc. Grab a piece of paper. Grab an electronic piece of paper or a physical piece of paper right now, and either an electronic writing instrument or a physical writing instrument. I like physical. And I want you to draw an arc. Remember that arc on the piece of paper. Just draw an arc. Opening moves, middle game, and end game. And I want you to think about what were the major topics we talked about. We talked about stances. Everyone with me? Competencies. We talked about mindset, and we talked about conversation. And so I'm going to give you a scenario, and I want you to sprinkle ideas across that arc of how would you conduct this coaching conversation given this scenario. You're just lightly sprinkling some strategy points. You don't have to fill in everything, but don't be front loaded or back loaded. Try to load the arc. There's no right or wrong. And when you do that, I want you to then enter some of that stuff into chat. Does that make sense to everyone? These are strategy elements. Given this scenario, I don't want you to list, this is the conversation. So Ronaldo, please don't list the entire conversation that you would have. That's too much. But list some elements. Oh, you know what? I would be very careful, Bob, and I would enter with an open mind because I was triggered by this. So I would want to make sure that I leave my biases behind. I would work on my mindset before I even entered the arc. Note to self, enter assuming positive intent. Then I would ask some open-ended questions. Maybe ask them, what's the biggest challenge for you here? So I'm listing some hints for how I would engage in this. So here's your first scenario. And remember, you're entering your stuff in chat. There's nothing right or wrong, and you can read what everyone else entered. And I'll just comment on chat. So what is Agile? And I've now promoted everyone or demoted you to Agile Coach. You're all an Agile Coach. You're an Agile coach who's trying to spearhead an Agile transformation. You continuously try to make the methods versus mindset point, but it doesn't land well. If you don't know what that means, just go with the flow. It doesn't matter. If you do know what that means, fantastic. The COO of the organization who supports the initiative, they're paying for the initiative. They're the key sponsor. Ask you to, one, help them explain what Agile is. They don't understand Agile. Two, what it isn't, what it is, what it isn't, and what is the value of it. They're looking for you to help them understand. So what does that conversation look like? Let's see what pops up in chat. Someone needs to, and that's okay, scribble and brainstorm, think, and then when you want to, just dump something into chat, an idea. So you're scribbling on your desk, but you can also add some of that to chat and share it with other people, some of your strategy thoughts. The first one is always, so someone needs to Omar, could you break the ice? We always need an icebreaker.
Sir.
So I'm putting pressure on you to type something in chat.
Sure.
Related to that, how would you approach that scenario? Anything that you would, for strategically, how would you approach it? Keep in mind, everyone, someone can beat Omar.
Okay. First thing I would ask them is, what do they understand when they hear the term agile?
Oh, that's beautiful.
This is alluding to meet them where they are instead of meeting them where you want them to be. That's a beautiful
opening moves question. Now, the key thing, Omar, would be listening really well and asking follow-up questions. Can you tell me more and more and more? That's a beautiful entry-level question. Everyone understand what I'm looking for? So that's just an example. There's other ways to enter it. That's not the only way. So other ideas. How would you handle this conversation as a coach? What stance? Another thing you might say, what stance do you enter? Professional coaching. But the question that Omar asked might open the door to what? Teaching, if that makes sense, right? So be ready for that. That might open the door. I asked the team, what change are they looking for? Now, remember, in this case, it's an individual. You're talking to a senior leader, a COO. And so you want to remember that context. So they're not a team. You're actually coaching an individual in this case. You may be coaching a team a little bit later. What else we got? Ask how deep they want the Agile explanation. I love that. Who was that? Ronaldo. You might not have much time. If they gave you 10 minutes, you're like, holy cow, I can't, right? So see, I mean, a scoping question might be very cool. And that might complement what Omar was saying, really nice. Quana, I love it. Listen for any resistance. Don't assume resistance, but listen for resistance. And even ask some question about, and tell me more about what your concerns are. Tell me, I mean, the questions aren't just about Agile. What are you afraid of? What are you concerned about? The change associated with Agile. Stella, what is your perception about Agile, and what changed you? Oh, Stella, I like the last part of that. The first part was wonderful, but the last part is beautiful. Everyone with me. And what change do you hope to see? That's more aspirational. Everyone see the power of that? Just that simple question. What are you dreaming for? What are you hoping for? I know that sounds a little bit schmaltzy, but I think that's a beautiful question to figure out, hey, like what are they trying to accomplish? Do you want to hear more about it? Are you engaged? Right? What are you looking for? What problem are you trying to solve? What keeps you up? Anyone ever hear that? I don't know if it's a great question because a lot of people say it, but what keeps you up at night? That might be a question for that's a COO. I don't think that's a good question for a team, but it might be. But I think it's a good question for a leader, and you can use it for that. Anything else? What are you trying to learn today? Absolutely. You know what? In this question, do you think you're going to nail the coaching conversation in one arc? How many people think that you can complete this entire thing in one arc?
I would say not.
I would say not. So really, there's a mistake that a lot of people make. They say, "Oh, I have one coaching conversation. I need to get to nirvana." It's like, no, you need to set up the next coaching conversation. So, excuse me. So your first coaching conversation is just maybe fact finding. It may be just relationship building. Hey, everyone, remember, we're building a relationship with someone. The first question might be, tell me more about yourself. What brought you here? Tell me what you're looking for in the company. How long have you been here? Build a little bit of empathy. Remember I was talking about empathy building, walking in their shoes, setting that stage. So the first coaching conversation might be that. Then I talk about some agile questions. Then we maybe do a deep dive into some training. So I'm setting a bouncing ball of coaching conversations. So I, sort of tee things up if you want. That's an option as well. Let me see what else is here. Stella hit the nail.
Yeah, Stella said to your art question that she's answering no because the mindsets are completely different. And then another question to it's more of exploratory is, what have you heard about Agile? Because we're making the assumption, they don't know anything.
Yeah. What are you worried about? What are your fears of Agile? Right? Or have you seen Agile failures? Right? Or what successes have you seen and what failures have you seen? If any, or something like that, trying to get some boundary conditions to see where they're at. The point of this is we don't know, right? We want to set the context up. So to me, a big part of the first coaching conversation is relationship building and discovery. Does that make sense to everyone? We're discovering things and not just diving in and having the time. I think Ronaldo said something about patience or earlier time and taking the time, don't rushing. I see coaches. I was like, I have 22 coaching meetings today. I don't have time for a relationship. I have to change everyone in 5 minutes. Well, that's not going to happen. So sort of throttling back on that. Let's go to another one. It was wonderful. I want to change another context, but the same recipe, another arc, different scenario. Let's see how you respond. If I can actually change the slide. Now, this is a different role, everyone with me. So you are a Scrum Master coach and have noticed a strong pattern where team managers swoop into their respective teams each time they, the team, encounter a critical problem. Some people call it swoop and poop, swooping in. There's different terms for it. The managers, let's assume positive intent. Everyone with me, right? So right, that's not what they want to do for a living. They keep taking the problem solving and accountability from the team, and you can see the morale and ownership of the team waning. The team's waning. They're taking. I sometimes characterize it. They're taking a little bit of the soul of the team away each time. There's one particular manager. We'll call him Bob, just for the heck of it. A very senior, experienced, respected, and simply isn't responding to your coaching. So you have actually had 3 coaching conversations. You've had 3 swoop poop conversations with Bob so far, and his behavior hasn't changed. So this is the 4th one. I'm just giving you a little bit of nuance, a little bit of context. Everyone with me. Same arc. How do you enter? Middle, end game. Think about stances. Think about mindset. Think about conversational elements, etc. So let's look in chat and see what pops up. Stella, wonderful I want to give you positive feedback. Nice comments there. I appreciate what you did in chat. So we're now switching gears. Someone has to break the ice. Who's going to? But I don't want you to take time to think about it. But who's going to break the ice? Stella, coming together with my COO is a beginning. Okay, that you're still on the COO. I want to switch to this. I want to switch to swooping thoughts, but the COO discussion is good. Stella, remind me. I want to come back. I want to respond to something you said, but I don't want to do it now. I want to do it later. So if you could just remind me to come back to react to something you said. Come on, someone give me a swoop and poop. There we go. And we're referring to Bob. Thank you for that. So Ronaldo, as well, what are you looking for? What are you missing? Very open-ended. I like that. You might even say why, Ronaldo. right? We've had this conversation 3 times. I've noticed that there's been no improvement. Can you help me to understand why? And I wouldn't blame them. Why? Tell me what aren't we doing? Right? What changes? Because the team is really trying to show that they're taking ownership. So what aren't we doing that triggers you to come in and help us or something like that? Hey, what do you see in the team that worries you? Omar, I like that. There's some open-ended stuff there. Yep. Yep. Anything else? Again, I'm just looking for chat and what to react off of chat. What ways do you help the team to organize? But what evidence can you provide that can sustain this behavior? Omar, I like that. It sounds a little confrontational, but I might rephrase it a little bit. Can you share with me what are your triggers that cause you to come in? Because what I'm trying to do is help the team to improve. So, but understanding what those triggers are, those key conditions, that would be valuable data to understand what's going on there. What do you believe? You being at the session matters. Why do you believe? Again, Joy, it's a good question. Those questions to me are a little sharper, and I would want to ask them if you have a safe relationship with Bob. Does that make sense? If I can be a straight shooter with Bob as a coach, then those are good questions. If I haven't done the relationship building, then I may want to soften those explorations. But at the same time, I've had 3 conversations with Bob. I need to have a little bit of courageousness in this conversation for my team's sake. If not for me, for my team, because the team is struggling here. What area of improvement do you want the team to work on so that they can take ownership? I like that, Philip. Nicely played. That's a good one. Really turning it around. So did anyone notice some of these questions are looking for specifics? And I think that specific conditions, specific triggers, so that we can manage through that. We can communicate that to the team and share that with the team. I think that's a fairly good approach. Could anyone, if I have a good relationship, I might even joke around sometimes and I'd be like, you know what, Bob? You're ripping the soul out of one interrupt at a time. You're ripping the very soul out of this team. Right. I think the entire team cried the other day and ran out the door in despair after you took away their ownership. You know that I'm kidding, but at the same time, this has to stop. We have a good working relationship. This is really a problem. What can I do to help you work on it? What can I do to gain you confidence? What I'm saying is, if I built that relationship, maybe I can actually get into that radical candor with Bob. Does that make sense to everyone? It's a little bit, what stance did I use there? That was not, I think it was leader and advisor. Does that make sense to everyone? Leader from the courageousness point of view. It's a little risky. What I just said was a little risky, but maybe it'll get Bob's attention. Maybe the powerful questions didn't, but the key there is relationship building. All right, cool. How do you want to land it? Someone go to endgame. Give me some endgame ideas. Give me some end games. Give me some outcomes. How would you like to end it? How would you like to in some cases, landing the coaching conversation. Anyone ever hear that term, drop the mic? We want to create a drop the mic moment at the end of the coaching conversation if we can. What would be a good drop the mic moment? So all I'm saying is a lot of this was up front, not bad, but go to the end as a coach and try to create a drop the mic outcome. I just want to see some ideas about what that might look like. Anyone? So Bob, you will be scheduling some sessions to teach the team how to manage these situations. Who said that? Omar, nicely played. Exactly. Sometimes playfulness can be our friend, Omar. In a coaching conversation, being playful, respectfully playful can be, and so I know that was a serious, but again, a little bit of playfulness as well. Let's work together to build that trust. Stella, I like that. So something that Stella approached that I haven't heard a lot of. What's the magic in Stella's comment? Partnership, trust, partnership, co-creation. We're in this together. If you can ever sprinkle that into these coaching conversations, it's to your advantage. Everyone with me? Right? It could be adversarial. It could be naturally adversarial, but can you pivot it into partnership? I'm with you, right? So sometimes spatially, move from talking at each other to moving with each other. That's where understanding what Bob's concerned about. Oh, okay, I understand what your concerns are. How can we work to improve in that area? Everyone understand that shift? Right? That's a powerful shift that we can make in our coaching conversations.
Bob,
Joy, I like that. The power of a follow-up. You with me? There's a power of the follow-up and a very tight follow-up. Someone was talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob, I have a question. You added some nuance to stating how this relationship with Bob is. To the idea that you mentioned that the coachee is the one responsible for the outcomes. Using your nuance, would that comment that I added actually look playful, or just make sure that we ensure that Bob takes responsibility to create maybe that trust that Stella is, or those sessions to maybe have that trust or that partnership that Stella is referring to, instead of being playful, seeing that coaching hasn't worked?
No, I was actually, so I don't want to overanalyze that question, Omar, but if I read it, so to me, it appears more directive. If I don't have a partnership with Bob, it appears more that I'm assigning a follow-up or a to-do to Bob, and we'll do this. Maybe that's not the intent, but if I can twist it and be more playful with it, then maybe it has more of a co-creation, co-partnership, co-ownership flavor to it, even though most of it's on Bob. And that subtle shift, and again, it depends on your relationship with Bob, right? It's situational. But telling Bob what to do is riskier and less effective than co-creating the outcomes with Bob as a coach, is what I was trying to communicate. All right. I want to get, if everyone, let me check the time. It's 5 after. I want to do it really quick and just get a little feedback, everyone, on the third scenario. I only have 3. No, I have 4. Hold it. Let me see which one I want to pick. Oh, we're going to do this one. All right, we'll do this one. This will be the last one. And we're going to do it quickly, and then we're going to close the workshop, everyone, because I want to be cognizant of time. So there is an I in team. You're the scrum master of a team who has recently adopted Scrum. One team member, the team lead, again, guess what their name is? Bob, is really struggling to work within the dynamics of a cross-functional team. Bob knows everything. Bob's been with the company for 20 years. He's a subject matter expert, a SME. He writes 80% of the code for the team. Why? Because he knows all of the code base, etc. He's a nice guy, but he's sort of a control freak. And he's very smart. And Bob doesn't like this agile crap. He's a lone engineer. He's just more comfortable working by himself than he is in this kumbaya agile sort of space. So, because they know everything, he can be perceived negative, belligerent in meetings. He doesn't like to collaborate with others, and a little disruptive. It's just like, let me alone and I'll solve world hunger. I don't really need the team. But he's got a good heart. He's like maybe the Grinch with a good heart. Another team member has pulled you aside and is begging you as the Scrum Master to do something about it, because there is no team. It's Bob and everyone else. And so in this case, you've had 2 conversations with Bob, and his behavior really hasn't changed much. So this is the third coaching conversation for Bob to get him to move from I to we, if that makes sense. So what does that conversation look like? Oh, Ronaldo, I like your comment. I just saw your last comment. So everyone, we have a new Bob, different scenario, anything at all. How would you enter the conversation, etc.? Remember, it's the third conversation. I love Stella. I like that. Now, Stella, I think that would be more of a comment for the first conversation, maybe than the third. But if you didn't do that in the first two conversations, then it's not too late to do it now. To me, that's that empathy card. Looking at the world through. So, really, an important part of this coaching conversation with Bob is looking at understanding what the world looks like through his eyes. Does that resonate with everyone? Right? We need to understand what it looks like through his eyes. Doesn't mean we agree with it. We just need to understand what it is. That's that empathy card. Anything else? Again, mindset. I think mindset in this case is I would want to let my baggage go. I might be frustrated. Everyone with me? I might be frustrated. There's pressure. As a coach, we need to release some of that baggage. Would everyone agree with that? So there, before we even go in there, I would say clean my head up so that I'm not bringing some of that baggage to bear, because that's not going to help me in the coaching conversation with Bob. And be self-aware of that, right? So that assume positive. So assume positive intent might be very valuable in this case. Even if I've had those conversations, I need to let the past enter each conversation almost like it's new. What else? Omar, ask Bob, seeing what you are new to this way of working, what are your concerns? What do you like? What don't you? I love that. Again, that's that empathy, Omar. That's a wonderful way to enter it. Just expect the unexpected. I don't know how to interpret that, Stella, but it sounds good. Everyone, don't assume that Bob knows that Bob is fully self-aware of his behavior. Does that make sense to everyone? Very often that we see behavior, but my experience tells me 80 to 90% of the time, people are not aware of their behavior and the impact it has to the team. So as a coach, one of the things we have to do is almost sort of envision their behavior, show them, hold up the mirror to them a little bit in a patient way. As a coach, I would set up time with Bob during a time that works best, ask him some brief questions. Kenya, I would say that's that relationship building in the beginning. That would be that first conversation around that. Kenya, a little bit of now, in a virtual world, it's harder. But when I had these hard conversations, historically face to face, I would invite someone out of the office. I might take a walk outside or go to a coffee shop or something like that. Someplace. So what I found is that getting out of the environment sort of de-escalated or took the tension down. And that's how one of the reactions I have. That people change when they know why. They see and feel something. Absolutely. I mean, it might be even an open-ended, a nice opening move question. Since we've had two conversations, is Bob. We've talked about, your behavior with the team several times, and I know I've observed some stuff, but I'm wondering how you're feeling. We talked about you taking some actions. So, are you changing? How does that change feel? Are you making progress? Are you struggling? So tell me more about what you're doing, right? What is your experience? What progress? How can I help you? So what I'm doing is I'm holding Bob accountable in some ways to some progress and getting him to look in the mirror a bit in his way. Stella, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes we tend to write something in the charts and we can express it when we speak. So, some years ago, I came across this particular situation where I had to work with a team lead that was, in their word, difficult. When I came in, I had a team member that told me about everything. And I said, okay, I can't take you for what you said. I have to deal with that person personally for me to see what they actually are, who they really are. So I had an opportunity of having a coffee section in the morning with that person. And there I had to, meet that person at their level, get to understand their communication style first, appreciating them and appreciating the resource they've been in the organization. And then I proceeded in, talking about their expectations, what they needed to see, how they feel I can come in as your Scrum Master to help them, present that change. while the person was talking to me, I felt something. And one thing I see is people aren't patient to really understand the next person beside you. So people tend to read behaviors differently. So that is one thing I saw, because just for me having that discussion with that person, I saw why this person was truly resistant, because this person don't even know the why to why he's doing that thing. Is accustomed to something, and they needed to know the why surrounding that stuff. And that was why I came in as a scrum master, explaining, having to have a great conversation with that person. And that gave me the technique information to use for that person. You see? So I think for this, communication and being patient is the key word. We can as coaches, I am not a coach, I'm a scrum master, although I coach. But as coaches, I feel like we can, when we are having conversations with these people that are being resistant, we tend to expect anything from them. Sometimes it might be when you say drop the mic, it might be okay, I go with you, your suggestion, not mine. But it's all come to meeting those people at their level, having better conversation and being patient. Because sometimes you feel like I want to lose it. But again, you be like, okay, let me hold myself, you know. But this is all about, because we are all human. Yeah.
So Stella, so I'm going to leverage that as a beautiful drop the mic moment for this entire talk. And what you just characterized to me was empathy building, relationship building, listening, not dropping assumptions, getting to know someone, sensing and responding. I'm using different terms, but I'm aligned with what you said. And then figuring out, not assuming something, but figuring out, oh, this is the problem for them. This is why they're resisting. Listening for that. And then now adjusting as a coach to coaching to that. Not what I think, not what someone told me, but I'm co-creating that. And then that's a beautiful moment to co-create a journey together. That's what you did, independent of what your title was, to me was a wonderful story of coaching. So why don't we drop the mic on that, everyone? And with that, I just want to say, everyone, I think everyone would benefit in their roles by developing their agile coaching skills, period. And I hope you got a little sense for, and don't think of it as coaching, think of it as coaching conversations, just having these conversations, these courageous conversations. So I want to thank Omar. I want to thank the group. I want to thank all of you for patience with me, and it was just a wonderful opportunity. So with that, I'm going to step back and let Omar take control.